literary legends and luminaries. I'm Julie and welcome to Book Smart. Today's book is a lighthearted, funny one. It's Judy Greer's I Don't Know What You Know Me From, My Life as a Co-Star. If you watch TV or movies, you've probably seen Judy Greer before, although you may not know her name. She wrote this book back in 2014. Even way back then, she had starred in way too many to name television shows and movies. You might know her best from Arrested Development. I remember her most from the thing about Pam and White House plumbers. She was not, although everyone thinks she was, according to her, in Bridesmaids. I was drawn to this book because Judy Greer is not some highfalutin movie star. She shops at Target, yet works in Hollywood and happens to be on our screens, but is not an overblown superstar who thinks the world revolves around her. She isn't a braggart or pompous or considers herself a social media influencer. It's refreshing to read a book by someone in Hollywood who acts like a real person. But the book wasn't that great. It was a fun read, but it wasn't all that well written. It sounds like she's spoken to a recorder and then it spewed out what you are reading. Lots of I's and reallys and just a lot of how someone would speak. After a while, I started noticing it a lot, and then it started to bother me, and then I couldn't stop noticing it. Because the book was such a quick read, I read it in 2 days, I didn't think I would even do a Book Smart episode on it. But she has 2 chapters at the end that changed my mind. So let me back up and begin at the beginning, which is where Greer starts her book. She grew up in Detroit, considers her childhood her ugly Judy phase, and includes pictures to prove it, and she's an only child. Let me read you a brief paragraph that she wrote about what she thought of her appearance. I hate when I tell people I was ugly and they are like, no, you're exaggerating. I really was. I have proof. See Ugly Judy 1. It's okay, I'm over it now, but I had an extremely long awkward phase that I think I am still and might always be recovering from. If I'm being honest, I believe that this is why I think I'm more attractive than I probably am. You see, when you're used to looking at this, see Ugly Judy 2, in the mirror every day for years, when you start to see this, see Pretty Judy, it looks pretty good, you know? I mean, trust me, I know I'm no Angelina Jolie or insert person you think unreasonable beautiful here, but at least I don't look like my grandpa. Sorry, Grandpa. I mean, you still landed my grandma and she was smoking. So, and then she provides pictures to go along with it. So see what I mean when I say it sounds like she's talking to you as opposed to having written a book. Not that that's a horrible thing. Greer relays funny childhood stories. It's refreshing to read a memoir that isn't all about trauma or conflict or even paving the way to her Hollywood fame. Greer truly seems like a nice, positive person. When her parents sort of control her decision as to where she goes to college, it has to be close to home, she's funny as she tells the story. My parents did the same thing to me, and trust me, I do not have any humor in my story. So it was interesting to read a fresh perspective on something I could relate to. Her dad buys her a pink car, which she grimaced at the color. She includes pictures, but I wish they were in color so I could see how bright of a pink it was. Greer describes the times she didn't get parts because she wasn't ugly enough, or how people tell her how pretty she is in person compared to what she looked like on TV. One of my favorite chapters isn't until part 3, and it's about her adoption of a sickly American bulldog named Buckley. Readers will get some tidbits on celebrities, but not anything earth-shattering. Most everyone she mentions is sweet or whatnot, so if you're hoping to get insider information on other celebrities, you won't. Greer does devote a chapter to all the people who work on the set, how it takes a village to make a movie or a TV show, all the people behind the scenes that never get much attention for what they do. And FYI, she starred in M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, which I don't remember her from. She also writes about a raincoat, the coat she wore when she was singled out by an agent, when she was the bearded lady on My Name is Earl, and her disastrous first Oscar event. It's all lighthearted reading, the kind of book to bring on vacation when you don't want to think about the horrors of the Holocaust or the Salem witch trials, or even the horror of any sort of true crime book, or even a memoir that is filled with grief and trauma. Towards the very end, Greer writes some profound chapters. I wish she would have done that throughout. The first is called Dear Diary, a chapter about the 42 journals she wrote in her younger days. She thought she could pull material from these journals to put in this book, but instead has a profound, disappointing conclusion to these, and I have to read it to you because it's incredibly interesting. I wrote 42 diaries total if you add up everything in the box my mom sent me from her basement and in my bookshelves in my current home. And then she goes on, I have never been so disappointed in myself and my lack of growth as a person as I have been rereading my old journals. I had this stupid idea to go through them for this book, that I would find little gems in them, or some inspiration at least, so I could talk about my early days using my own words from those actual earlier days. At first, I was excited to find all the old lists I used to make, to read my old thoughts, and to remember what my life was like and who I used to be. I had planned on using them for material, maybe even copying them down word for word, thinking that they would be funny or charming, that they would provide some insight into what kind of person I had become. I guess that's the reason one keeps a journal, isn't it? To keep tabs on what was happening and to monitor self-development, keep track of memories. But mine have provided nothing short of utter disappointment. As I started to really read them, I realized that I haven't changed at all from 1986 until about 3 years ago. That means that for 24 years, I have been the exact same person, making all the same mistakes and all the same promises to myself. There was almost no growth, no change, no movement of any kind in a positive direction in any way. The only thing somewhat comforting is that I think I started out pretty mature for my age. The bad part is that I totally stopped maturing as a person at around 13. It's depressing me. I don't know how to handle this discovery. It's kind of sent me into a tailspin. I like thinking of how far I've come as an adult. I like feeling so superior to the old me. I want to think that I'm a really evolved person and that all the experiences I've had have propelled me toward the person I am now. I mean, I own a house and have a retirement account. That's like really mature, right? But as I read and reread these old journals of mine, I realized that I had hardly evolved at all until I met Dean Johnson, and that's her husband. So how relatable is that? In fact, I used to throw my journals away, embarrassed by my immaturity and ridiculousness when only a year or two had passed. Why I expected to change much between 13 and 15 is a bit baffling. And then she goes on and writes this in regards to the whole epiphany thing here. When reading through these diary entries, I seem obsessed at a very young age with finding some contentment with who I was as a person. This is why I think I was into ranking and categorizing everything all the time. I wanted to always know where things stood, what my passions were, what I was devoted to, and how I was devoting myself to these passions. It seems that if everything was in its place, I would find that contentment that I craved. Yet I never ever wrote about why I wasn't content. On February 3rd, 1988, I wrote, Dear Diary, I'm really happy and finally at ease with myself. I've been looking for this kind of peace for a long time. I was 12. So I have 42 stupid books filled with my discontent and 3 years of extreme happiness with no record of it at all. Okay, there's a lot of Instagrams and a wedding album I will hopefully have paid for and own by the time this book gets released. But some comfort I can find in it all is that I was always trying and willing to be the best me possible, that I wasn't lazy and I didn't give up on people easily, even when I probably should have. And Jeff Hunt, if you're out there, thank you for not getting a restraining order, though I wouldn't blame you if you had. And that was a boy she was obsessed with when she was a teenager. So this is the kind of stuff I wish she would have tackled a bit more. Sometimes the rest of the book felt too surface-oriented, trying to make it funny. But stuff doesn't always have to be funny, even if you're known for being funny on TV. Then she writes about manifestos, using a manifesto instead of a goal or some sort of like to-do list. And she uses the more exciting term. So here's what the definition is of manifesto. A written statement declaring publicly the intentions, motives, or views of its issuer. This word excited me. It was so much more inspiring than a goal. It's like a goal, but in a better outfit. A manifesto is a mission statement. I want to be on a mission. Isn't that so much better than having a lame to-do list? I think a manifesto should sum up how you want to treat your days, what your priorities are, how you deal with people, how you deal with the earth, and how you want to spend your time. It should be a document that teaches you how to slow down and when to speed up. It should inspire you when you read it. And you should read it often. I also feel that manifestos are allowed to change, to evolve. My life plan in my 20s was so different from my life plan for my 30s. Everyone makes New Year's resolutions that last how long? Really? But this is like a lifelong evolving resolution. And then she gives a list of what is on her manifesto and then ends with this profound thought. I forget this stuff a lot. One thing is stolen from a yogi tea bag, one I found on Pinterest. But if I did a fraction of this, half of the time I think I was a real champion. But I'm a work in progress. I'll probably never be on a company softball team. I have no cubicle in which to store my glittered evening bag, and my days are, if I'm not working, unstructured and disorganized. I have not mastered the art of time management, but I try not to beat myself up about it. There's a lot of peaks and valleys in the life I've chosen, but my mission statement reminds me to focus on what matters most. When life is awesome, it keeps my head from getting too big. And when things are shitty, it reminds me that my life is still pretty awesome. I just wish she would have done more of this throughout the book. The paperback then has an extra chapter about the men she works with on Archer, a cartoon she does a voice for. It just ruins her manifesto ending. This is how some of the chapters read, though, like they're not meant for the general reader, but more for her friends and coworkers. However, the book will not take you much time to read, and it's worth it, especially if you find yourself stuck on a plane or lying on a beach somewhere, wanting to laugh and not take life too seriously. Yet throughout her memoir, Judy Greer doles out some good advice, words to live by. She said at one point, keep your life simple and stylish and earnest. Thanks for watching. As always, my goal at Book Smart is to get a little bit smarter, one book at a time.